finally, we are able to get our hands on the revamped version of Lord of Wolves. Now, just like Gerfalcons, this exotic was bugged. We had to wait for Bungie to fix it, add it back into the game. It was disabled there for a bit. Thankfully, though, it didn't take a month like Gerfalcons. Now, since the beginning of the season, Lord of Wolves has gone through a lot of changes, like literally so many. Now, mainly to reduce its domination across the PvP sandbox, and with update 6.2.0, the first of the changes came. They actually started with decreasing starting ammo in PvP from 15 to 10. They also reduced the burst size, shots fired per trigger pull, from 10 to 5, even when Release the Wolves is active. They even reduced the burst delay, the time between bursts, by a whopping 60% when Release the Wolves is active, and it decreased the Lord of Wolves base damage by 20%, now dealing 35 damage per shot to the body in PvP, and then 44 with Release the Wolves. They also increased damage in PvE by 20% though, to compensate for this. Now, we played with it a little bit back after this change, and let me just say, guys, it's hot garbage inside of PvP. Listen, Lord of Wolves had its reign for quite some time, which is why you hardly see Lord of Wolves anymore inside of PvP, especially in things like trials. Now, after these initial changes, we wanted to make a video on Lord of Wolves, but the damage in PvE was so bad, it literally was not even worth talking about. But here we are now, making a video dedicated to Lord of Wolves, because Bungie decided to rework it yet again. In update 6.2.5.2, Lord of Wolves got these changes. When Release the Wolves is active, they reduce ADS accuracy penalty from 10 times to now 3 times. They also removed the previously existing 25% universal base damage buff. They added 40% additional PvE damage buff, so basically a 15% damage buff once you take away that 25%. They removed the 50% crit hit multiplier penalty, and it now fires in full auto. Now, granted, we were really excited about these changes, but right after this went live, we were getting in there to test Lord of Wolves, but it was suddenly disabled due to some weird bug, apparently causing your abilities to do more damage. But with the most recent hotfix, Lord of Wolves is now back, baby. First up, we're gonna take a look at some damage numbers, and of course, do some damage comparisons. We're also gonna talk about it inside of PvP, because yes, the reduction there in ADS accuracy penalty from 10 times to now 3 times with the Release of the Wolves does make us go, hey, is it worth it now? And third, we're gonna give you a build, because why not? Now, we took Lord of Wolves into Nessus to pay good old Carl a visit, and this was the damage we were dealing. Base fire mode was 4,217 damage per body, 6,077 per crit. With Release the Wolves, this is elevated to 5,903 per body and 8,508 per crit. Now remember, this weapon shakes, so the chances are you're not gonna hit all crits, especially if you're in a boss room and you got the boss actually hitting you. Add shooting you plus the recoil, you're just not gonna hit all crits unless you've got someone rocking Divinity. So we're gonna be giving you both body and crit damage with Divinity buff values, since the 50% crit multiplier penalty was removed from Lord of Wolves, giving it the leg up over other options. Also, since Divinity is slated to be nerfed soon to a 15% debuff, we'll be including those estimated numbers as well. So starting, base firing mode total damage after a single burst, 21,085 damage per body. Base firing mode total damage after firing every burst in the mag, 126,510 body shot damage. Now, Release the Wolves total damage fires all 30 rounds in one long burst. This actually equates to 177,090 body shot damage. Now, with Divinity, this obviously elevates things. Base firing mode is 7,900 per crit plus Divinity per bullet. Release the Wolves increases that 11,060 damage per crit plus div per bullet, meaning our base firing mode total damage after a single burst is 39,500, and base firing mode total damage after firing every burst in the mag is 237,000 crit shot damage with Divinity. Now, Release the Wolves, which is all 30 rounds in the magazine, with Divinity is 331,800 damage all crits. Now, granted, this is going to change post Divinity nerf. This actually drops our values down, like base firing mode goes down to 34,945 per crit, 209,670 damage all crits for its base firing total damage, and then with Release the Wolves, it's 293,520 damage all crits with that post Divinity nerf. Now, it's also important to note here that shotgun reserve mods do not work with Lord of Wolves. I don't know why, it's a bug, it doesn't work. So the max ammo you can actually carry is 4 full Release the Wolf bursts, so essentially 120 rounds. Now, the obvious comparison here to Lord of Wolves is our other exotic shotgun, Fourth Horseman. So we're actually going to be taking a look at how the damage stacks up between both of these, which will also be against Carl. Fourth Horseman, on the other hand, does work with shotgun reserve mods, so 2 mods will actually bring you to 20 total shots. And if you have the catalyst, you can hold 5 rounds in the magazine. Now, each shot does increasingly more damage if you're firing in full auto, thanks to the broadhead perk, and each shot shoots 12 pellets. Once again, we have body shot and crit damage plus Divinity here for you. Now, starting with body shot damage, first shot is 2,501. This amplifies to 2,945, 3,470 on the third shot, 3,978 on the fourth, and at the fifth shot, 4,519. And these are actually pretty substantial bumps here in damage, total damage especially. You're talking an 18% increase, 38% increase, 59% increase, Wolves, and then a whopping 81% increase on that final shot. Now, the total damage after 5 shots, if all pellets hit to the body, are 208,956 damage. Now, when we actually start to involve Divinity, which of course allows us to hit crit damage, this really amplifies things, giving us our first shot at 43,219, amping all the way up to 78,087 damage at our 5th shot, giving us a total damage value for all 5 shots of 300,926 damage. Now, to keep things apples to apples going forward, with the Divinity nerf coming, this actually starts off our damage here at the first shot, 37,965, capping out at 68,598 damage on our 5th shot, giving us a total damage after 5 shots, if all pellets hit, of 264,329. Now, what you can see from this is that 4th Horseman with the Catalyst will do more damage than Lord of Wolves in its Release the Wolves mode, at least when hitting body shots. But as soon as you start to factor in things like Divinity and you start hitting crits, well, Lord of Wolves becomes the better play. This is because the critical multiplier for 4th Horseman sits at about 10%, while the critical multiplier for Lord of Wolves, after the penalty was removed, sits at about 45% based on the actual in-game math. And this is just all factoring in a single burst. The 4th Horseman takes much longer to reload than Lord of Wolves, and both weapon catalysts do increase reload speed, and for Lord of Wolves specifically while Release the Wolves is active. Granted, this all comes down to you hitting crits, which is definitely difficult to do. Personally, I think 4th Horseman is still the better play in terms of just outright DPS. We've done it against the Templar. We saw how much damage it can output. Lord of Wolves is good if you have someone that's rocking Divinity. You can definitely make it work then. Granted, I know someone's gonna ask, Cross, who's actually using shotguns in in-game content? Look, at one time, you couldn't go into a single raid without a slug shotgun. In this situation though, both of these exotics can be used in in-game content. And with all the reworks here to Lord of Wolves, it too can be used. I know we're kind of in an ability sandbox right now where builds are really dominating everything, but who's to say Lord of Wolves might not be an option for you in a future Grandmaster Nightfall, which is why we're going to give you a build for those of you that actually want to commit to Lord of Wolves. And then we're going to, of course, talk about PvP. Our pick for the best class to fit with Lord of Wolves is Hunter, solely because of the new Gerfalcon Hallbreak exotic chest piece that was released this season. Yes, I know. This is like the 4th or 5th build we've made with Gerfalcon. It comes with the perk See Me, Feel Me, which states that your weapons gain a bonus to weapon damage briefly after you emerge from being invisible. This lasts up to 6 seconds. Now, when you're invisible and you defeat a combatant using a finisher, you and nearby allies gain a reserve overshield and improved class ability regeneration. Now, these reserve overshields can be deployed by using your class ability, but the main selling point is, of course, the weapon damage increase that you get, which is a whopping 35%. So when we actually look at the damage values here, base firing mode with Gerfalcon is 5,693 damage per body, 8,204 per crit, and with Release the Wolves with Gerfalcon, this elevates to 7,969 per body, 11,485 per crit. Meaning, Release the Wolves, full total burst damage to the body with Gerfalcon is 239,070 damage. And considering we have 6 seconds of Gerfalcon's damage boost, this allows you to get 2 full clips of Release the Wolves off before that buff ends. So that actually equals out to 478,140 damage to the body. Again, we're not even talking crits here. So if you happen to land some crits, even more damage. And I'm kind of giving you like worst case scenario here on this, but if there is one exotic that will allow you to get close to your enemy to at least set yourself up to land crits, Gerfalcon is it. Now, staying alive is going to be very important, which is why we're going to give you the rest of this build. You're going to be rocking a Void subclass, of course, so you can go invisible as often as possible. 1, for its survivability. 2, because of Gerfalcon's damage boost, as well as the reserve overshields that you get. We're going to pair it with Echo of Obscurity because it makes you go invisible after you perform a finisher. Considering doing finishers definitely benefits you with Gerfalcons, this is perfect. We also have Vanishing Step to go invisible, and every time you're coming out of invisibility, whether it's from your finisher or your class ability, Gerfalcon's damage boost will proc. So it's like a combination of constantly getting finishers off, granting yourself overshield from Gerfalcon, and then going invisible again after getting another finisher. Simultaneously, performing a finisher while invisible with Gerfalcon gives you a boost to class ability regeneration, and this boost is actually huge, guys. Again, hunters, y'all are like the finishing machine with this exotic. Essentially, after dodging and then doing a finisher while invisible, that dodge is back again within 3 seconds, meaning that reserve overshield that you just obtained, you'll be able to use it within seconds because it activates when you use your class ability. Now, you can pair this with other damage resistance mods. Throw on Weeping Wellmaker, Well of Tenacity, so that when you get a kill after dodging, those Void Wells will give you damage resistance. You can throw on Elemental Charge and, of course, Protective Light, either or. That way, when you get that Void Well, you're not only going to get some damage resist, but you'll also be getting charged with light ×2. And if your shield breaks, you can, of course, proc Protective Light. Granted, I know Protective Light got nerfed way back when, and it's not a ginormous buff there to damage resist, but it's still nice. And if you pair it with Max Resilience, you'll be just fine. Or you can actually throw on something like Overcharged Wellmaker, which spawns 2 Arc Wells when you perform a finisher. Now, those 2 Arc Wells could also give you charge with light ×2 for Protective Light, and you can skip a step completely because you'll be utilizing finishers anyway for that reserve overshield and free damage boost while going invisible again, thanks to Echo Obscurity. You can literally use these mods together together at once. This way, you're constantly going invisible when you get a finisher. You're getting Gerfalcon's damage boost, class ability regeneration, reserve overshield, and charge with light protective light all at once. This is definitely a build to be reckoned with. But wait, we've got more. You can also apply a weaken debuff to the boss pretty easily on Void Hunter, either with your melee, with your grenade, and Echo of Undermining, or Quick Fall on Trapper's Ambush Fragments. You've got a ton of options here, guys. That weaken is a 15% debuff. And if you calculate all this, Release the Wolves full burst to the body with Gerfalcon plus weaken is 274,932 body shot damage. And if we times that by 2, of course, because you can get 2 full clips out with Gerfalcons before it runs out, that's 549,864 damage. And if you're able to go invisible again and have max ammo, and you're able to get all possible shots of Lord of Wolves off, you're just going to be shy of 1,100,000 damage. So I know it is risky using a shotgun in-game PvE content, but you can definitely make it work here, especially given the fact that you can get closer to enemies with invis before unloading on them. And considering we have unstoppable shotguns this season, I feel like it's a perfect opportunity to break Lord of Wolves out in its reworked form and try it in-game PvE content. Now, how is this exotic performing in PvP? Guys, I'm gonna be straight. Lord of Wolves is hot garbage. Fellas, that may actually be an understatement. I tried using Lord of Wolves, and I even tried using it with Release the Wolves, despite them actually reworking the ADS accuracy penalty from 10 times to now 3 times. And despite that, this has got to be one of the worst shotguns in its Release the Wolves form. Now, in its base form, it's still kind of good, but I would definitely use other shotguns over it. Where it sits now, it is nowhere near as powerful as it once was, and definitely nowhere near as powerful as it was last year. Bungie has done their due diligence in nerfing this thing inside of PvP. It has definitely been killed off. But as far as PvE goes, I want you guys to give it a try. Normally in the past, Bungie would have just discarded this weapon completely, killed it, and that would have been it for it. But it's really nice here that Bungie has returned to it within 2 different sandbox passes and making it viable at least somewhere. And inside of PvE, I think Lord of Wolves definitely has some potential. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.